Alta 2, Episode 4, Scenery, Lighting, and DCC Installs. My relationship with DCC since I was a teenager could best be described as strained. Outside of 8-pin plug-type installs and learning how to hardwire old Athearn blue box locomotives, I had little practical desire to mess under the hood. As the years dragged on, with my clients consistently asking me to stuff decoders into their projects, I forced myself to learn more. I bought a soldering iron that wouldn't burn down the workshop, and I got decent solder. Still, it was a slog. DCC often feels like such a black box, especially when something unknown goes wrong. Still, it was a pain. Years dragged on, and my own collection of locomotives was a hodgepodge of engines that either came factory equipped or were plug-and-play affairs. Most, however, languished as direct current engines for the day that I'd finally work past it. Last year, I hired a younger modeler to attempt to stuff decoders in a few of my engines. My hope was that I could finally subcontract it out and never have to worry again. Sadly, I was wrong. As the engines got damaged in transit, 2 decoders were dead on arrival, and it took extremely long to retrieve them back from him. So this fall, I buckled down and began just going for it, systematically installing decoders into whatever needed them. I bought a top-end soldering station, flux, and tip tinning paste. Some engines had sat for more than a decade until I stuffed a decoder into them. While most were motor decoders, I decided to put tsunami decoders in a few prized engines, and it worked out great. Now I can finally and confidently tackle future client projects with a bolstered sense of accomplishment from doing all of these. DCC system. In this huge decoder programming campaign, my poor little Digitrax DCS50 decided to let the smoke out of its wires. After reaching out to Digitrax, I got the worst possible news. They don't repair that model anymore. I absolutely abhor planned obsolescence. It's one of the major reasons why I went to college for industrial design. I wanted to combat it, but it's such a pain when a brand you've trusted for years is like, oops, sorry! Haha! So into the bin it went. Hopefully it'll become a curiosity for future landfill archaeologists to muse over the utility of in about 3,000 years. Oh, it clearly was a religious object with ceremonial significance. What else could it have been? Asking the knowledgeable experts at Tony's Train Exchange, they pointed me to North Coast Engineering's Power Pro starter set. The first DCC system I ever used as a kid was an NCE system. I found it to be enjoyable to use back then, so I figured I'd give it a try again. I only went with Digitrax because the club I belonged to many years later ran it, so with limited resources as a teen, I stayed with Digitrax. The Power Pro has 5 amps of power and should keep long consists of sound-equipped engines running much happier than my anemic old Digitrax Zephyr. Hopefully once it's all set up, I'll have a dedicated programming track so I don't need to migrate the system across the room between the workbench and the layout every time I want to do more in-depth programming than in ops mode. Scenery. Alexander and I have been planning the new town of Esquina ever since we got the foam glued down for the layout. After over a dozen iterations, we're dialing in a really nice-looking plan for the next version of the venerable little town. One of the biggest changes is embracing the terrain of the real region around Guaymas and Empalme. Last week I stacked, carved, and slathered Sculptamold, the imposing mesa. Next comes a more beautiful red-orange paint for the base of the mesa and Arizona Rock and Mineral Company dirt. Lighting. As you've noticed, the layout now has mood lighting. They're programmable strip LEDs made by Philips as part of their Hue line. They are not cheap, and I only went for the second tier ones that change the same color all at once. For a considerable amount more, you can have strip LEDs that change different colors along the strip and patterns. I figured this was probably overkill for the layout, as I mainly wanted to use them to light the horizon a hazy white during daytime, and then be able to model sunrise, sunset, and blue hour effectively for videography. It's also such a vibe running trains with a perma-sunset after a long day of working on client projects. Stay tuned for the next episode as we work on Esquina, I finish off the mesa, and more scenery comes together. As always, the immense time it takes to write, record, and edit these videos becomes easier with every dollar of your support. I can dedicate more time to producing fun, enjoyable videos like these. On Patreon this fall, I have a custom-designed mug with a Pacific Electric blimp on it, and a lovely dark blue long-sleeve shirt with a Boeing LRV rail design I made. Consider supporting at any level, and you'll have plenty to enjoy along with my videos. Thank you to all my patrons who are already aboard as well. Thank you, and have a great day.